Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Audrey. Happy spooky season. It is September 1st, so today I am showing you my very first Halloween related DIY of the season. I actually created these last year. I only created them like 2 or 3 days before Halloween, so I was really behind the curve. This year I want to make sure I get a little more ahead of schedule so you all can see this DIY ahead of time and actually possibly be able to do it for yourselves. This DIY came to be almost 30 years ago now. My mother and all my aunts had a little Halloween party where they created their own version of these DIY trick-or-treaters. So I grew up every year taking a photo next to our trick-or-treaters in my costume. So because my mother did it, my aunts did it, and some of my aunts still have their trick-or-treaters, my mother doesn't anymore, I thought, what better time than now that I own my own home to be able to make some for myself. Like I said, I made this DIY last year, so what I'll be doing today is repurposing some of my old footage, just so then you can see how it's actually done. So let's do it. So here is me in October of last year cutting up my plywood. You do need something for the base. I found this piece of 24-inch by 12-inch plywood in my garage, cut it in half, and now I have a base for each of my little babies. As always, I went to the Thrift to find some supplies and was surprised that they actually had dowels, which was so perfect. So I brought these home and cut them in half and just made them to what felt like good toddler height legs. From there, I just placed the shoes wherever I thought they would look best and most natural on both of them. Both sets of shoes are thrifted. They were like, I think these were $4 and these ones were $3. At this point, I'm just setting up the shoes because I'm going to drill a hole through the shoes and into the plywood. Drilling through the plywood into the shoes is just going to make a pilot hole for me to be able to put the screw in to then connect the base to the legs. Okay. And then I got to flip this over, and I do have to change out to the countersink bit. I'm using a countersink drill bit because at the top it's wider, so as you drill your hole, it'll create a little cone, and when you put your screw in, it'll sit flush with the plywood instead of sticking out, so it'll make for a very flat base.
Well, there you go. Perfect.
Boom, boom. So now the screws will not stick out. Now I'm going to screw the screws in. I'm gonna screw the screws in like I did before, where it just goes like, just so it's popping out the other side and we can get the shoe on. The intent of just getting the tip of the screw through the plywood is so I can line up the tip of the screw with the holes in the shoe that I made earlier. From there, I can hold onto the shoe as it's smashed up to the screw and then screw through both of them. And then is it through the shoe?
It's not through the shoe yet. Oh, there it is.
Repeating what I did with the plywood, I'm screwing the screws up and into the shoes, but once I get to the sole, I'm stopping so just the tip is poking out. Okay, so we kind of have to stop there because we need to then, do these have pilot holes yet? No. We need to put pilot holes in the legs, and then we'll keep attaching the screw that's come through the bottom of that. When I say pilot holes, I just mean pre-drilled holes in the wood or any of the items that we're working with. This is just so when the screw goes in, it doesn't splinter, it doesn't go off in some crazy direction. This is just giving the screw a guide so it goes exactly where it needs to go. And then they're gonna need pilot holes in the top for the top portion, so we'll do that now too. These pilot holes on top are going to connect the leg dowels to a future horizontal piece. Here is where we were able to match the dowel pilot holes to the screw that's going through the plywood and through the shoe, and then with my mother holding it, I'm able to get the remaining portion of that 3.5-inch screw up and into the dowel. You will repeat the same process a second time for the second leg, as well as you could end up doing it 2 more times if you're building 2 little trick-or-treaters. Oh my God, so cute. So now, it's another countersunk so it's flat. Once the legs are assembled and upright, it's time to put on the pants, because directly after the pants is where we're putting on this horizontal brace piece. You can see me toying with it here to get an idea of where it needs to go. After that will be the head, and then final assembly. I just lined these up and then made it about center, because honestly it doesn't matter. And then I drew one line and one line. This is how I so I just drew the lines to match the holes.
Yeah.
And then right in the middle of that is about there, so
yeah,
I'm not going to drill my pilot holes. So these pilot holes are going in sideways, since the dowel is going to be on sideways in comparison to the original ones. One hole for each dowel leg to be connected to, and then one in the center that's going to hold our neck and then eventual head. As I mentioned before, I'm really just going with what I think looks good, and that includes the total height of these trick-or-treaters. So I took the length of the pants into consideration when making the dowels, and then now I'm just using my first one and kind of comparing to my second to see what a good height would be. The first was about 30 inches tall total, and the second one was about 33.
This is 28. 28 inches.
29, 30, 31, 32, 33. So 5, and then 6, 7 for in the head.
Right.
7.
7.
My mother and I just had to do a little quick math. These mannequin heads actually come with a hole. They're from Joann Fabrics. If you look at the right-hand side of the screen, you can see it there. So we just had to take the 2 inches into consideration for the portion of the dowel that goes into the head for the measurement of the overall height. The same technique for screwing through this dowel is the same as the vertical leg dowels. You're going to start with the original dowel, like I am here, and screw the screw down into the pilot hole just enough so it just barely pokes out the other side. This gives you the opportunity to line up your horizontal dowel with your leg dowels and your horizontal dowel with your neck dowel prior to actually screwing through, ensuring that there's no mistakes and you go into the second dowel smoothly. Boom. Yay. Okay. But this will go in here, and then those two will go in here. I recommend attaching the horizontal dowel to the neck dowel first. If you attach the legs first, it's fine, but then you have to screw in the neck screw from the underside. So this way it just makes it easier. Boom.
Nice.
Then we are just going to line up the little screws with our pilot holes, which lines up perfectly.
Yep, it's going in.
Okay, we'll do it again on this side. Boom! For these screws that I used on the top of these dowels, I left them out, and it's actually funny with little kid clothing. A lot of them, they have like some sort of like adjustable straps, or like this one has the elastic band around the waist. I use those to keep the pants up, which is awesome. Again, not needing to staple or glue, so this can all come apart. And then leaving out these screws was so perfect, because now I can hang the little basket. You can see I did it here as well. For the actual ghost costume, I just measured from the top of the mannequin head down to the top of the basket, which was about 20 inches, made that my radius, and then cut a circle from the fabric to match. If in doubt, just cut your circle larger, and you can always put it on the mannequin head, see how it looks lengthwise, and make adjustments and cut off fabric if needed. And final touch are these cute little ghost eyes. So I cut them from felt that I got from the craft store, but the felt I got is actually adhesive on one side, so that's how I'm sticking it to the fabric. You could also use hot glue, or you could use a marker or paint to draw them on. With having the supplies at home, as well as going to the thrift store, my total cost all in on this project was about $40. And here they are, my super realistic DIY ghost trick-or-treaters. This is really beginner friendly when it comes to DIYs because the only tools you need is a saw and a drill. Drills are pretty inexpensive at this point, and saws, if you don't have one, you could have the employees at the hardware store do all the cuts for you. So, piece of plywood and half of the dowels. I already have that at the house. The dowels are actually some old broomsticks. The other half of the dowels I got from the thrift store, as well as this canvas, all the children's clothes, shoes, and these bags. And if you aren't lucky enough to find your supplies from the thrift store, you can also purchase them new, which would be a little bit more expensive, obviously, but it's all things that are pretty readily available. The supply list isn't too daunting either. As I said in the beginning of the video, happy spooky season. It doesn't really feel like it here in South Alabama. It still feels very summer-like. But if you happen to try this DIY out, please tag me, send me a picture. I would love to see it. Or if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Or you can DM me at Audrey Gaynier on Instagram. Thank you so much for watching, and this will not be my last spooky DIY of the Halloween season, so stay tuned.